Since almost a year now, the end of August 2019 to be exact, I have moved to an apartment in a different city because my mother, who I lived with in my hometown, passed away. I had moved here with my long-term boyfriend and one other roommate, who has been a good friend to both of us since before we had even started dating. We all absolutely love it here. The location is great. It's a 15-minute bike ride from my university, and it's located at a square with a grocery store, a drugstore, lunchrooms, and so on. So, we pretty much have everything we could possibly need to survive within walking distance. However, after just a month or two of living here, someone has started to ring my doorbell at exactly 11:05 p.m., semi-regularly. Sometimes every day, sometimes every other day. Sometimes there's a week in between, and sometimes there are a couple of weeks in between. But it is always at around 11:05 p.m., and every single time, I get no answer each time I ask through the intercom who it is. Except for one time, but I'll get into that in a bit. At first, I thought it were friends from one of the neighbors who accidentally rang the wrong doorbell. But after the fourth time, I grew suspicious. And after more than those 4 times, I started noticing that it always happens at either exactly 11:05 p.m. or a few minutes earlier or later. My boyfriend and roommate both work at bars, and so they work until pretty late, and they would usually only get home at around 2 a.m. So each time it happened, I was always at home, alone, and it started to really freak me out after a while. And when I first told them about it, they kind of shrugged it off and said that it was probably a wrong dial, like I had thought at first. But when I told them that it had happened so many times, and sometimes even daily, they didn't really believe me and thought that I was just a little paranoid and spooked out. However, one night, when the doorbell rang again, and I answered the intercom asking who it was, I heard very heavy breathing. I was thoroughly spooked at that moment. I was again home alone and kept asking who they were and what they wanted. I couldn't make up from the breathing if it was a man or a woman, but I heard a strange mumbling and whispering. And then it was dead silent, and they had appeared to have left. I had put my apartment door on a double lock after that. I was so scared. Thankfully, my roommate got home a little earlier that night, around 30 minutes after the doorbell rang, and he could tell how upset I was. Now, with the current crisis, my roommate and boyfriend aren't able to work anymore, and they now also witness the frequent door ringing at 11:05 p.m., so they do now believe me and agree that it is very odd and creepy. We have a balcony that looks down at where our apartment building's main front door is, but because there also is a shop right underneath us that always has those curtain roof things out, the view to the door is always partially obscured. Every time our doorbell rang, me, my boyfriend, and roommate would all go to the balcony to see if we could see anyone, but we never could. I have also asked my neighbors from my apartment building if their doorbell also gets rang so often, but the ones that I asked all said that it never happened to them. So, 2 weeks ago, my roommate decided to do some investigating and went outside our apartment building at 11 p.m., standing across the street and pretended to have a smoke while keeping an eye on the door. He said that he did see a man who looked kind of suspicious wandering around our apartment building, who slowed down his pace significantly as soon as he approached our door. But when he spotted my roommate looking at him, he quickly walked away. We weren't 100% sure if that's the door ringer, but that was very, very suspicious. Our doorbell hadn't been rang at night since that day, and I'm hoping that maybe it'll stop now. But there is a possibility that it will continue again in a few weeks. So, a strange doorman who rings my doorbell at 11:05 at night so often, please stop, and let's please never meet. Many of you suggested that I go outside every night at 11 p.m. so I can catch the guy in action. I would have done that if it weren't for the constant different intervals of time between each door ring. Like I said, sometimes the ringing would stop for weeks, and to go outside at night every day for weeks, especially during the wintertime, while something that might not even happen, didn't seem like an effective method for me. Many of you also suggested that I install a camera above my doorbell. We have a huge intercom doorbell board for all the bells of the apartment, so I can't install a camera there, unfortunately, as I do not have an individual bell system. If this keeps up, I'm gonna contact the police about it. I've been planning and asking more neighbors from other apartment buildings next to ours if this also happens to them. If it doesn't, I'll call the police the next time that it does. I, however, doubt that they'll do anything right now, since with the current crisis, the police will not only respond to serious crimes or immediate, threatening situations. I was just home for Christmas and was reminded by my father of a story that he had told me once before. My father had moved to Manhattan from Peru in 1970. One night during this time period, he was out at a bar with his friend Carlos, also from Peru. Sometime during the night, they were approached by a well-spoken, friendly, nice-dressed American man. He offered to buy them a few rounds, and they spent a few hours drinking and talking. After a while, the man invited them back to his apartment, somewhere on the Upper East Side, to keep drinking and hanging out. My father instantly and instinctively was not into this idea, but Carlos, who was drunk and chasing more free drinks, stupidly insisted that they take him up on it. They arrived at the apartment, and after an hour or so, Carlos had passed out, sitting up in the man's reclining chair. Everything had been fine, but my dad was never comfortable with the idea, and now knew that it would be even more complicated with Carlos passed out. He went to the bathroom for a minute to splash some water on his face and sober himself up. When he stepped inside, he immediately noticed a large pair of scissors sitting on the sink. They were way larger than any normal household pair, and he compared them to something that you would see in a hospital. He told me that at this moment, his entire body was overtaken with instinct, and something inside of him made him pick up the scissors and put them in the waist of his pants behind his back. When he walked back out to the living room, he found the man with his hand on Carlos's leg. He asked him what he was doing, and he said that we were leaving right now. The man told him to just relax and keep drinking, but enough was enough and my father was insistent. At this point, he said the man's face dropped and his voice lowered, and his whole demeanor changed. "You're not going anywhere," was the man's reply as he produced a large knife from a pocket of his own. Upon this, my father pulled these scissors from behind his back and locked eyes with the man. They stood tensely for a moment as my father explained in a few words or less. "I've got scissors and you've got a knife. If you come for me, I'm getting you too." The man, realizing the stalemate, put the knife down and said, "Get the heck out." My dad shook Carlos awake, practically carrying him to his feet, and pushed him out of the door, never taking his eyes off the man or his hands off the scissors. He said the man stood in the door and glared at them as they backed down the hallway to the elevator. Be prepared to listen to things that are not my finest moments. When I was a freshman in high school, I was dealing with a lot of things and it ultimately caused poor life decisions. So, I started high school when I was young, barely 13 years old. I'm a female, now a junior. I didn't think anything about this guy since I wasn't focused on people. I didn't really care about anyone except my two friends that I had in the classes that I had with him. He was 17 at the time, and yes, in those classes, the grade levels were mixed. Nothing ever struck me as odd about him, since I rarely paid attention to him. Until one day in biology, I looked up from my paper and saw him taking pictures of me. I was creeped out, but didn't say anything in case I was wrong. And then days later, he found my Instagram and kept texting me, which I obviously would never respond to. And if I had to, I would be very dry and just leave him on read. And then one day in the middle of class, I got a text from a random number saying, "Hey," various emojis and heart ones too. And I immediately knew it was him, since earlier he was asking for my number, which I declined to give to him. I immediately went to the two friends in that class to yell at them for telling him, in which they replied, "We never gave it to him." They even showed me their phones and let me go through them and their messages with him, and no number of mine was ever mentioned, despite his numerous text messages asking them for it. I never answered him and desperately tried to avoid him, until one day on Instagram, I got a message from him saying, "You're so pretty," to which I replied that I wasn't pretty, and then he spammed me with pictures that he had taken of me. That wasn't even the creepiest part. There were like 50 plus pictures of me, ranging from classes around the school campus, and even outside of school, like near the bus stop or waiting for a friend and the quad to go somewhere. There was even some of me playing soccer with my friends on the football field. It's used for soccer too, since the soccer field gets flooded easily and constantly is getting fixed to look pretty. Obviously, I left him on red and blocked him and avoided him even more, to the point that I started skipping classes. And when I did go, I told the teacher what had happened, while I was shaking, and she would let me go to the dean of the school where I showed them everything, and even gave them the number that I got the message from. It's been 2 years and I'm a junior now. I stayed in the school since they have connections to a hospital that I want to volunteer in, and because I have great friends there. And he's made new accounts and everything. Instagram, Snapchat, and probably got a new number. And he's been trying to follow me and message me for weeks now. I keep blocking him, but new accounts are created. I'm honestly glad to quarantine, since I would probably be nervous to go to class or even school. It's also worth mentioning that it's still not known how he got my number, as the only two people who had it never gave it to him. And I'm 100% sure that he was following me around school, even after I had told the dean. So, I am now 16. I turned 16 a few days ago, and recently, I've been playing games on Roblox with my best friend, like Murder Mystery 2, Arsenal, etc. And one of the games I play on my own is Adopt Me, because I like all the pets they have. I am writing this minutes after it had happened. I was playing Adopt Me after my classes, since we have short periods for school on Mondays, so it was like 11:52ish, and now it's 12:07. There was this player who had a variation of my stalker's name with random numbers after it, and I stupidly thought nothing of it. Instead I thought, oh, it's a pretty common name, which it is. But I couldn't shake off this feeling, and then that person kept following me. And again, I was stupid and thought, they probably want to trade since I have an ultra rare pet. So I stopped driving, but that trade invitation never came. So me being me, I left and went to the campsite since my pet wanted to go there. Everything was fine until I was going back to my home in the game. Until that user put, "Hey, my name." And I didn't think anything was wrong until I did a double take and realized that my name isn't on my Roblox account. And on my Roblox account, I only have 3 friends. And all 3 of them either call me by my alias that I made for my books or future podcasts, or by my Roblox name whenever we play. I didn't respond to the message and instead just acted like I didn't see it, while the other players were asking the user, "Who's my name?" The player then kept on following me around until I left the game, and even then he sent me a friend request which I denied and immediately blocked. That wasn't the only thing he had done since my last update on the story. We found out about this guy that I'm talking to somehow. The guy isn't from California, and he told one of his friends, I say friends with quotations because he has yelled at that friend for talking to me, or even being near me before. And that friend happens to be a very close friend of mine. And that friend told me what happened, and how he freaked out but couldn't do anything, due to the guy not being in California, and seeing that he was scary looking to my stalker. The guy is a huge softie, so it made me laugh knowing that. After I was told that he had somehow been stalking my followers and following, I blocked people that would know him, and possibly let him use their account to look at mine. I updated my brother, legal guardian, and my friends that knew about him, so they would know, and even told the guy in case my stalker had the idea to message him and tell him a complete lie. As previously, the stalker had messaged a close friend of mine and told him that we were dating, me and my stalker, in an attempt to get my friend to stop talking to me. He even told that same friend that he was going to marry me and that we were going to have 2 kids, which is a huge lie, because 1, I don't want kids, and if I ever do, I'll adopt, and 2, if I get married, it'll most likely be to the guy that I'm talking to right now, or to a woman. Luckily, nobody believed him except his friends who were saying that it would happen one day, and he'd just keep trying to be with me. I overheard once and was disgusted and told 2 of my friends, D and B, about it, to which they got mad and refused to let him near me whenever he tried to talk to me. Even though now we're not in those classes, D and B are still in classes with my stalker. We're still close, and they tell me whenever they overhear my stalker's friends giving him ideas. In my last update, I left out a piece of information due to me not having the full story, until my friend B told me the rest that I needed after it was posted, and I didn't want to assume anything or give possibly false information. Rewinding to freshman year, on Valentine's Day, I found a huge stuffed bear in my math class and it was on my seat, so I thought somebody had left it there. And when the teacher came into the class, I told him that someone left a huge stuffed bear behind, to which my teacher responded, "That wasn't there in my previous class. Somebody probably left it there for you. Maybe a secret admirer." Me and my math teacher have a father and daughter bond, so we play around like that. We ended up looking into the packaging because our curiosity got the best in us, and it had a letter. I still vibrantly remember it because it creeped me out so much. It read, "Dear my name, it's Valentine's Day and I wanted to give you something for today. I like everything about you, your smile, your eyes, and your body. You're perfect. I love you." I stayed in for a bit during lunch and gave my math teacher the note, which got him creeped out too. We ended up throwing away the note, and I took the bear but met up with a friend, S, for the rest of lunch. She asked who gave me the stuffed bear and said that it was nice. I ended up telling her what had happened with the note and how I found it, and then I gave the stuffed bear to her so she could keep it. You all might ask, why did I give her the bear? Well, I have 3 reasons for that. 1, she has panic attacks and snuggling up to something when she has them helps her go through them, so I gave her a giant stuffed bear. 2, I don't like over-the-top things, and 3, I already had a lot of stuffed animals due to my brother getting me them since I was a baby. My friend S still has the bear, and it has helped her a lot, so I don't regret giving it away or even receiving it from my stalker, which was not known then, because it had helped someone out with a problem. Fast forward to when I found out the stuffed bear was from my stalker. My friend B had messaged me to tell me about my stalker finding out the guy that I'm talking to, and before we had ended our conversation, he asked if he could call me, which I said yes to. During the call, he told me about how he's in this group chat for this class on Instagram, and how they're all friends in that class, and that they were sharing things about their previous boyfriends or girlfriends for some reason, which my friend B and my other friend D were not a part of. Instead, they just looked at the messages. My stalker claimed that I dated him, and then said that I didn't want anyone to know but that we did date. We never did and never will. My stalker then continued on to say in the group chat that the giant stuffed bear that was on my seat in Algebra 1 was from him, and then he got so mad at me for giving it to a friend, so he broke up with me. I wasn't even shocked that he made up a story of us dating, and when I told my best friend, G, we laughed for a bit, and then decided to contact a lawyer and see if the restraining order could be put, and if the police could be involved. Sadly, I got the news that since he had not been near me since I had switched classes, and I'm no longer in classes with him, that I cannot get a restraining order since online harassment and stalking isn't bad enough. Yet since they've only been friend requests and hello, my name, which meant that I couldn't even go to the police due to it being online and not dangerous. Sorry if this was a bit too long. I would have shortened it, but it would mean more parts and I didn't want to annoy anyone trying to find the parts. Also, if anyone is going through this or something similar, tell someone because at first I didn't say anything because I thought it wasn't going to get bad. But it did, and it is still getting worse.